Neoliberalism is one of the most controversial economic and political ideologies of our times. It is an ideology that emphasizes free market capitalism, deregulation of industries, and reduction in government spending on social services. Neoliberal policies prioritize economic growth and efficiency, which supporters argue has led to increased prosperity in society. However, detractors argue that any prosperity gains have tended to go to the wealthy and have often been at the expense of social equality and environmental concerns. Neoliberalism's intellectual roots can be traced back to classical liberalism and economists like Friedrich Hayek, who advocated for free markets and minimal state intervention. But it only emerged as a dominant economic philosophy in the 1970s onwards, particularly through the policies of leaders like Margaret Thatcher in the UK and Ronald Reagan in the US, as a response to the perceived failures of Keynesian welfare state policies and the economic stagnation they were thought to have caused. This shift marked a significant move away from post-World War II consensus on the importance of the welfare state toward a global economic order favoring free markets, open international trade, and limited government intervention in the economy. In this video, I'll outline 5 key features of neoliberalism, then end with an overview of the key arguments for and against this ideology. Let's start with the first key feature of neoliberalism: free markets. At the heart of neoliberalism is the belief in the efficiency of free markets. This perspective holds that unregulated markets, free from government intervention, are the best way to allocate resources, spur innovation, and generate wealth. Neoliberal policies often involve reducing barriers to trade and investment, such as tariffs and regulations, to promote global economic integration and competition. Our next key feature is the privatization of state services. Neoliberalism advocates for the transfer of ownership of state-owned enterprises and services to private entities. This includes the privatization of public utilities, healthcare, education, and even certain aspects of government services. The belief is that private companies can run these services far more efficiently and effectively than the public sector due to the profit incentive. Next up, we have neoliberalism's focus on deregulation. A key feature of neoliberalism is the deregulation of industries and the economy. This involves reducing the amount of government rules and regulations that businesses must comply with the idea that this will lead to a more dynamic and flexible economy. Proponents argue that deregulation helps to reduce costs and bureaucratic red tape, fostering innovation and business growth. Critics argue that deregulation allows industries to cause damage to the environment, underpay workers, and engage in unethical business practices. Fourth, let's look at neoliberalism's focus on fiscal austerity. Neoliberalism often calls for fiscal austerity measures, which involve reducing government spending, particularly on social programs such as welfare, healthcare, and education. The rationale is that such spending is inefficient and that reducing government debt and deficit is essential for economic health. This approach is often controversial as it can lead to reduced public services and dramatic increases in inequality. The poor and needy are often left behind with no social support after austerity measures are implemented. Our fifth key feature is the focus on individual responsibility. Under neoliberalism, there is a strong emphasis on individual responsibility rather than social responsibility. This principle holds that individuals should primarily be responsible for their own well-being and success. They should not rely on the government. As a result, social welfare programs are often viewed as creating dependency and disincentivizing personal effort and entrepreneurship. This aspect of neoliberalism can lead to reduced support for collective solutions to social problems such as climate change, poverty, and inequality. Those are our 5 key features of neoliberalism, but what has their effect been on society? Well, let's look at them from the perspective of its detractors and then its supporters. Critics of neoliberalism center their criticism on its socio-economic impacts, particularly its role in increasing inequality and eroding social safety nets. Detractors argue that while neoliberal policies may spur economic growth, they often do so at the expense of social welfare, leading to a widening gap between the wealthy and the poor. The emphasis on market efficiency and privatization is seen as contributing to the decline of public services and infrastructure, as well as exacerbating job insecurity and wage stagnation for the working and middle classes. Moreover, critics highlight that environmental costs of unfettered economic activity and the undermining of democratic processes through the disproportionate influence of corporate interests are all exacerbated under neoliberalism. The 2008 global financial crisis, attributed in part to deregulation in the financial sector, further fueled criticism about the sustainability and fairness of neoliberal practices. On the other hand, proponents of neoliberalism argue that its policies have been instrumental in driving economic growth and global prosperity. They posit that free markets, by fostering competition, lead to more efficient allocation of resources, innovation, and lower prices, ultimately benefiting consumers. Advocates also stress that privatization and deregulation have helped break down monopolies and government inefficiencies, leading to improved services and productivity. Additionally, the global spread of neoliberalism is credited with lifting millions out of poverty, particularly in emerging economies, and promoting international trade and investment. Supporters also argue that individual responsibility, a key tenet of neoliberalism, encourages personal initiative and entrepreneurship, essential for economic dynamism and progress. So, what do you think? Has neoliberalism been good for society? Or has it ripped apart our societies and led to enormous social inequality? Let me know in the comments.